Well, good morning, and welcome to the third day of Google I/O. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this, and I'm excited to see so many bright faces here. And this is the Chrome Fireside Chat. We try to do this every year as an opportunity for you guys, the developer community, to engage with us, the Chrome team. And so today we have a few product managers and a few engineering managers here today to take your questions. If you look over on that screen, there is a URL there that you can go to, which will bring you to that page that you see on the left over there, where you can submit questions and vote on questions. And so that will automatically refresh throughout the session. And I'll take questions from there, and I'll alternate with questions from the audience. And so there's two standing microphones. One's over there and one's over there. I would recommend actually moving close to the edges so that you have easy access to those microphones if you want to ask any questions. So that's it. We have an hour. Let's start with some intros. Each of us will tell you our name and what we work on, and we will try to say something about either a recently launched project or feature that we're excited about or something that's coming up. So I'll start. My name is Jeff Chang, and I'm a product manager on the Chrome browser, and I'm currently responsible for end-user features. And I also help coordinate the releases that we do every 6 weeks. And recently launched feature, which I'm the most excited about, which hopefully you've heard about by now, is tab sync, the synchronizing of tabs across the many devices where you use Chrome. We previously already had the ability to sync your bookmarks and settings and other stuff like that, but tab sync in particular allows you to see all the tabs that you have open on all of your other devices, and open any of them at any time, which I think is really useful, especially across mobile and desktop. And the tab even includes the navigation history, so you're right back where you left. But that's me, and I'll pass it off to Alex now.
Cool. Hi, so my name is Alex Komorowski. I'm a product manager on Chrome as well. I focus on the open web platform, so all the technologies that web developers use to build cool apps. My favorite stuff, and if you saw my talk on Wednesday, this won't surprise you, is web components. So web components is a new technology, a new standard that's being developed. Still relatively early stages, but it promises to allow people to totally change the way they architect their web apps and be much more productive. So I truly believe this is one of those technologies that 4 years from now we'll look back on today and be like, how did we build stuff without this? So I'm really excited about web components in particular.
Hi, my name is Eric Kai. I'm in engineering on the Chrome team. Actually, I've been with the Chrome team now for a really long time, almost since it started, which is actually getting close to 6 years ago, believe it or not. We were secret for almost 2 years at the beginning, and so even though we've only been out for about 4 years now, so it's been a long road at this point. Anyway, I've done everything from the auto update system to Chrome extensions and our app system, and I also now help lead the native client effort and a few other things. The things I'm most excited about, I'm actually really excited about web components too, Alex. I think that's pretty awesome. But selfishly, the new stuff we're doing with apps, I think will really be a big deal for people who want to use web technologies to do more advanced applications going forward. So I'm really excited to see what people are going to build with that.
Hi, my name is Ian Ellison-Taylor. I'm the Director of Product Management for the web platform. And I'm just realizing I probably should have sat at that end since we already covered a couple of my favorite features in web components and apps. I think, just to echo Eric's comment, I think what's coming with the new generation of apps is going to be a game changer. We kind of teased it just a little bit in the keynote. We tried not to really oversell it because it's very early days. But there's a ton of very cool stuff coming there. But just to make Pavel's life worse and not repeat, probably the other major area I'm really excited about that's coming up in the next sort of 12 months is around all the tools work. Now we've got, I think Pavel showed some amazing stuff with our own dev tools in Chrome. But if you also saw, Adobe did a fantastic talk on some of the work that they're doing around brackets and shadow So they're doing have done some great work with Edge and designer-focused tools for the web platform, and then there's lots of other companies as well, Cloud9 and to name but one. And so I think with a big investment in tooling as well as on top of the platform, we can make it much easier for people like you to build some amazing experiences. So I think that's really going to help. So I think that's pretty exciting.
Thank you. Kidding. I'm Pavel Feldman. I'm a software engineer working on the developer tools. And the areas we are currently focusing on are better authoring so that you could develop from within the tools. It's memory. As the platform matures, we see a lot more requests on the memory. As your apps are running for days and weeks, you'd better make sure you have no memory leaks. So we have a new heap profiler. We have new tools for native memory measurement. Lots of stuff there. The other area that is important for us is support for mobile. We are working on the remote debugging for the mobile, and as well as emulating mobile handsets on your desktop. We do support and we've created the remote debugging protocol that we are happy to see other big players using now around WebKit. The other area that is important for us is the rendering smoothness, and you've seen a couple of sessions of that on that yesterday. That's where we make sure your apps are buttery smooth, and we are happy to see more and more requests there. And overall, we are happy to see the way platform matures and the way you have more and more demand in the tooling.
I'm Felix Lin, and I'm on the product team for Chrome OS. I spend most of my time working with hardware partners to bring Chrome devices to market. I guess I'm most excited about the recent Samsung Chromebook and Chromebox that were just released, and the close working relationship that over the past couple of years we've developed with Intel and Samsung and Qualcomm and all the other folks who are in the PC ecosystem building devices. You know, I'm a huge fan of Chrome, as you can imagine. I love all the things these guys have built. But what we're really trying to do with Chrome OS is fully integrate Chrome directly with the hardware and deliver the best possible experience in a fully integrated package. And so, you know, the benefit of Chromebooks and Chromeboxes and other devices is that, you know, when we can control the entire stack all the way down to the hardware, we can deliver the best possible experience for Chrome and the web on any hardware that people have. And so it's not about replacing PCs or replacing other devices, but for the people who are spending more and more time on the web, what we want to do is just deliver an awesome, magical experience for all the rich, immersive experiences that you guys are building for the web.
Great. All right. So now we're open for questions. Feel free to just walk up to any of those microphones and ask, or otherwise we will trade off with the
Yeah, just
Google moderator page there.
we'll take precedent for the people who actually take some bravery and walk to the mic. We'll just intersperse the ones from the moderator here.
All right.
Hi, good morning. I've got a question. We've seen yesterday that it's possible to open tabs on other devices. And sometimes if you're like left at home and you have the devices, the tabs open there and you open it on a mobile device, will it be possible to close the tabs that are home? Because I read it on the mobile device. It's done. The task is done.
Yeah, I want that too.
So the question was, it's great that you can open tabs that are on other devices from your other devices, but what about closing them as well? That's a really interesting feature request. We'll have to think about that. I'm thinking, you know, it might be possible if Chrome is running on that device, but if that device has already been shut down, obviously, you know, you couldn't do it immediately.
I think we could do it.
But maybe we could, you know, maybe we could figure something out there. But yeah, I imagine that could be useful. But yeah, when we started designing that feature, we talked about tab sync. You know, I think we realized pretty quickly on that you wouldn't want the exact same set of tabs duplicated everywhere. So that's not the way it works. It's more like a panel, you know, a dashboard almost. You can see all the devices you have, what's open on each one, and just like pick and choose what you want. But we'll definitely keep that in mind.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We got a +1 over there. Great.
Can I make a question on Chrome OS?
Yes.
what's the roadmap on Chrome OS and VPN? Sometimes to configure Chrome OS for VPNs and get into the side of a network, it's been a little bit of a hassle.
So Chrome OS today already supports VPNs, and we're doing a ton of work through the management console to enable IT administrators to centrally manage an entire fleet of devices quickly and easily to support different authentication schemes, different access control mechanisms, and all that.
Cool. Looks like we got another microphone question over here.
Hi. I'm wondering if anything is in the works to improve drag and drop interoperability between web apps. So a couple of years ago, we had the ability to do file drag and drop show up in HTML5, and it was fantastic. And I'd love to see sort of the next evolution so that I could, for instance, be in Gmail and just drag an attachment out of a message over to another application that can do something with that file, and have that application be able to sort of interact with Gmail to pull in the information it needs and do something, or vice versa, drag out of an application onto a Gmail, et cetera.
So that's a great use case there. There isn't exactly precisely a standard respec being developed to do precisely what you're asking for, but something that does something sort of similar is web intents, which is a spec that we're driving that allows applications to say, I've got an attachment or whatever, and allow the users to pick which application they'd like to sort of service that request with. So theoretically, you could have a loose coupling between Gmail and any other web app that would want to view those images or what have you. But that's a good point, that users are familiar with drag and drop, and it makes sense to be able to drag and drop these things between tabs. But that's not something that's currently on a roadmap.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that last point is loose coupling. So web intents is like another one of these really exciting technologies that I think is going to change the web in a year. That you're going to look and say, oh my God, how did we interact without this? Because the idea is that now Gmail can interact with a whole host of web apps that it knows nothing about. It didn't have to be programmed with the knowledge that, oh, I want to save this attachment to Dropbox or G Drive or whatever else, or that I want to share this picture with Twitter or Google Plus or whatever else. That it's up to you and the apps that provide it, and just that fact that we can now have these websites interoperate without having to hard code relationships between them, I think is going to be a game changer.
Cool. Any other microphone questions? All right, let's take one from the Google moderator page. So offline is pretty important for the Chrome OS story. What features are missing from the web platform that would help drive offline usage, offline application usage?
So I'll take a stab at this one. So there already are a suite of technologies in the web platform that allow you to do offline things. You've got things like local storage, you have app cache, IndexedDB, and others. They aren't necessarily a joy to use right now, but they do exist as low-level primitives to build upon. The file API is another great example. But I would argue actually that the way to think about really driving offline application usage is the way you develop your applications. So if you develop your application with a always-on server, always connected to a server mindset, you're going to approach it in certain ways and architect your app in certain ways. And then when you try to layer on offline, it can be pretty challenging because you don't have that server connection all the time. And so actually orienting yourself as a developer and saying, I'm going to start from the beginning, working in this world where I don't know if I have internet connection, it sort of forces you actually to pivot your thinking and to design your app in a different way. And that's a great thing about the next evolution of Chrome apps, is actually they encourage you as a developer to start from this world where you are sort of offline by default, and connecting to the server is almost an exception. And so that really orients you to sort of architect your app in the way that really works for offline.
Right. So thanks for the shout out to the Chrome apps, but I really want to emphasize that this is like one of these key architectural things that we're building in from the beginning for Chrome apps, is to say that apps should be written to be offline by default, and we're doing a lot of things built in to them to make it possible to make it easy for you to not get your app into a bad state, so that one of the interesting things about offline is people sort of get hung up on, oh, well, I've got connectivity everywhere. Why do we need offline? And it's because offline isn't such a straightforward thing. It's not a question of, am I on an airplane with no connectivity? It's, oh, well, sometimes I've got spotty connectivity on my cell network, or other times I'm at a trade show with 5,000 people all using the same Wi-Fi, connection, or other times I'm at a hotel with a captive proxy, or, there's offline has a wide spectrum actually, and making your app so that it's resilient to these network conditions takes a little bit of forethought. You have to build your app, assume that it's offline, and basically you're operating on local data and syncing with the server. And all of these features that that Alex was talking about local storage, operating on that local data, having your code running locally to begin with, and then synchronizing with the server and as you get network connectivity is sort of the key to making offline work.
All right, the computer that was projecting the URL for the questions just died and it won't boot, it won't start up. So we're going to try to replace that, but hopefully we have a pretty good queue of Google moderator questions there and audience questions, so let's keep going.
Morning. So Chrome is a leader of the HTML5 standard, no doubt. I was curious on the roadmap for the mobile Android version of Chrome, when that would kind of catch up to the current platform, specifically in my case for the WebGL implementation. Being that that's super hard on Tegra and Intel chipsets, but I just wondered if that's on the roadmap and where that might fall.
Is anyone from that team here? Is there someone at the... Oh, yes. Oh, Mr. Smith, good Lord. Yes, Grace, come down and maybe answer this question. Otherwise, I'll make up something like it'll be there next week, maybe Tuesday.
Yeah, I can answer here. So WebGL, we actually under development behind the flags. There's a performance issue, as you just mentioned, and then there's a potential the DOS attack. So we try to work with like OEM device drivers to try to address these problems.
The high-level strategy, of course, is that all these features end up on mobile. It just there's implementation issues, and also recognizing that the unique power management requirements, make it a little bit tricky. But generally, when we do new features in the web platform, we're thinking about the mobile scenarios, or almost, I would say first and foremost. Generally, we worry a little bit less about the desktop because that's an easier scenario. So pretty much everything, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that we're not thinking about being in mobile sooner or later. So. Hopefully that lag between desktop and mobile will get shorter and shorter. Sorry?
So there's also there's a little bit of this temporary lag based on the fact that Chrome for Android is relatively new. And so we're still going through and making sure that we get all those pieces that we worked on to make Chrome for Android work back into WebKit, back into Chrome. And so that process takes a little bit of time, which is why it takes a little bit for us to catch up to where desktop Chrome is right now. But that's a temporary problem. So there's a long-term problem of some of these features. You have to make sure you design it in the mobile to work well in the mobile use case, and others ones it just takes a while for us to catch up to desktop.
Okay. The next question from the moderator page is, OS 10 10.8 has a power nap feature that keeps various bits of a user's data synced while the machine is suspended, email, etc. Any plans for such a feature in Chrome OS? Felix, you want to try to take this one? Oh, I guess, yeah, you can look at it on that screen too. So since that machine's broken anyway, maybe we can get that screen mirrored on that screen.
So this is definitely a feature that, that we're looking at. I can't tell you exactly when we'll have this feature in Chrome OS. Certainly as we work with Intel and other hardware partners, I mean, these types of capabilities are much easier for us to implement because we have full knowledge of the hardware that's running in these systems, and we can actually design them. The great thing about Chrome OS, though, is that you could buy a machine today, and if that machine has the capability at all to make this possible, we'll roll out that feature and you'll get it automatically. And so, a lot of these features, when we spec the minimum requirements for Chrome OS boxes, a lot of what we're doing is looking forward and making sure that we've got the kind of headroom that we need to be able to add new features, new capabilities, even though what we release on any given day may not include this full set of capabilities. So.
I should point out as well that this basic feature, this basic request, makes sense in a lot of different scenarios. It makes sense, especially on mobile as well, where you don't want to constantly have your radio powered up. And there's also been movements with these event pages. So in general, we're moving towards a model where it's it's possible for web apps to sort of allow Chrome to wake them up, do a little bit of work, and put them back to sleep in response to events. And that's really basically the core of what PowerNap is doing as well. So we're looking into this on multiple fronts. So while Jeff is figuring that out, I'll move on to the next one. Okay, will I ever be able to run Chrome OS on a tablet, maybe even an Nexus 7 tablet?
That's a great question. Chrome OS is really designed to run on a variety of form factors. So there's nothing about Chrome OS that says that we can't run on a tablet or pick your device form factor. The first device that we've focused on, because of the complexity of the use case, is the clamshell, where we can bring the full capabilities of Chrome to bear. Today, Google's OS for tablets is Android, and we're able to bring all the capabilities of Chrome to Android for Jelly Bean and Ice Cream Sandwich. We're working on creating a completely seamless, coherent experience across all devices, regardless of whether the underlying OS happens to be Android or Chrome OS. And so from a user standpoint, whether you're buying content from the Play Store or whether you're running an app, our goal is to make it such that you don't really have to worry about whether it's actually Android or Chrome OS running on that tablet. We want that to work.
Next, how will the two operating systems, Android and Chrome OS, eventually converge? We get asked, we've been asked about this in the past. I think one thing to keep in mind is that Chrome OS has the goal of designing an end-to-end computing experience that embodies kind of the same core principles as Chrome does: speed, simplicity, security. And over time, we've been thinking about what parts of the technology stack between those two make sense to integrate, right? And so we're very happy to say that Chrome for Android came out of beta this week, and so Chrome for Android is now stable. Maybe Felix, you have some other comments on this, or Eric?
Well, I can add a few things. I mean, one thing is that you'll see, I think you're going to see more and more convergence over time. We first off, just bringing Chrome, to Android was sort of the first big step. But there are many places where we can integrate more. First off, getting the same set of apps running using the same cloud infrastructure. But I think the opportunities, doing some of the Chrome to phone stuff that we had before. We're looking to leverage a lot of the same infrastructure and to have more and more integration over time.
All right, any other microphone questions? Don't be shy. Any plans for a messaging platform inside of Chrome or Chrome OS, similar to C2DM or iOS notifications, which I believe are coming to the desktop?
So we actually do have some, effectively with Sync, we have a notification system built into to Chrome, into Chrome OS. And it turns out that behind the scenes, a lot of the infrastructure is very similar. And again, as I said, that we're looking to unify some of the base infrastructure that we share across Android and Chrome. I'd expect to see our messaging systems converge as well.
You can imagine that the solution wouldn't just have to be about messaging per se. It could be about notifications. So different apps could decide different things that were worthwhile for them to do. In fact, actually in the Meet the Web Platform video series, we showed off a mock of what that could look like.
Cool. All right, audience question?
Question about Chrome apps. What's the plan to get Chrome apps on Chrome on Android? And how is it going to work? Is it going to be the Chrome Web Store? Is it going to be extension to Play?
So, okay. Let's see, how do we start with this? First off, It's a common question we get about what's our plan for getting Chrome apps to mobile. And as you heard Sundar say at the keynote, and I said the other day at the Apps Talk, we are intending to bring Chrome apps to mobile, basically everywhere that we have Chrome. Now, how we're going to do that, the details of that, the timing of that, it's too early to say. I can say that we're looking for your feedback. We want to know from you what you want. What are the most important features that you want to see brought to mobile? And just one last little plug, we are hiring. So if you want to help make this happen, yes, exactly.
Cool. Another audience question?
Also about Chrome apps. You launch them from within Chrome, but with the new version, they'll act a lot like they're native to the platform. Any thoughts about setting it up so you'd be able to launch them as if they were a native app?
So absolutely, that's one of the key features of the next evolution of Chrome apps here is that we're pulling them outside the browser. It's not just that they have standalone windows, it's that the way you launch them will be without even necessarily having to have Chrome running. So basically, you'll just launch them from the native desktop.
When we have private key SSH?
Right. So I know that the engineer is working on that on the SSH thing for Chrome OS is his top feature request. So I know it's going to come. I don't know what the timeline is.
All right, looks like we've got someone walking up to the microphone. Go ahead.
Why was the change to Aura made? I know when the Chrome was initially announced, the launch video mentioned that you didn't even have a desktop background. And the change to Aura in the newer version of Chrome OS did make it a lot more like a desktop operating system. What was the decision? Why did that happen?
It was 99% user feedback. I mean, I think when we launched Chrome OS, it was, and the particular UI model, it was something of an experiment, and this was something that no one had ever done before. And we said we were going to update it, and based on user feedback. And obviously, I think Sundar made the point about like performance improvements and feature improvements, but people just gave us the feedback that they wanted it to be a little bit more like a quotes traditional OS. And particularly, I think that model, and this is just for me personally, I'll let Felix talk a little bit. For me personally, the tab model I think worked really well on the smaller screen. Once you get to sort of Chromebox style and you're on a large monitor, that single large window gets a little weird. It's like you get a huge crick in your neck. Going from one side of the screen to the other. So being able to like open multiple windows, switch between, and then you're multitasking. Now I've got 3 or 4 things going on at once, and I want a quick way to switch between them. And there's just a use case that seemed pretty important, and that you can very easily configure it so it behaves like it used to. If you don't like that thing, you just run everything full screen, keep everything in a tab, and so if you're in that model. You don't really lose anything, but if you want something a little bit more traditional with multiple windows, you can do that too.
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit of having a windowing system is that people can do more than one thing at one time, right? So a very, very common use case is writing an email and checking your calendar. And if you have to flip between tabs and you only have one pane, it's a pretty miserable experience. And also, as Ian was mentioning, with the Chromebox, we're now able to deliver a great experience on dual 30-inch monitors. And if you've got a huge desktop, having one full screen window is not a great use of space.
There's also one other kind of funny thing we discovered by having a full screen browser, which is there's sort of an interesting psychological effect for users. So users have sort of preconceived notions of what a browser can and can't do. It turns out, and so they see tabs, they see an address bar, they see a back button, and they immediately assume, oh well, it's only a web page. It can't do everything an app can do, or it certainly can't run offline. And it's sort of there's these interesting things that sort of get in the way just by having it there. And as we move to more focus on apps within Chrome OS and wanting to bring apps front and center, it was important to pull those out of the browser and to really give them their own windows.
That actually reminds me, since I teased this on Twitter about there being an Easter egg, it reminds me of one of them. So Ken, if you saw the keynote yesterday, Ken did the sort of spinning window thing. So that's in Chrome OS. So that wasn't just something we rigged up for the keynote. It shows the power of the window manager. So one of the keys is very obvious.
Isn't it like Control Alt and then the refresh button or something like that?
Sorry, what was that?
Isn't it like Control Alt and then the refresh button or something like that?
It may or may not be that.
I don't know. I've done it before.
Yeah, I thought it was so. All right, well you give it away. But there's another Easter egg that was in the keynote as well. So I don't know if anyone spotted that one, but I'll maybe talk about that later, if the questions are good enough.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the current Chromebook runs on Intel, dual-core Celeron, but all of your Android devices currently run on ARM, NVIDIA, Qualcomm, TI, respectively. If you're ever going to get to a point in the future where you'll be able to dual boot a device, whether it be a tablet or a laptop, desktop, or even a smartphone down the road into either Chrome OS or Android, you got to get on the same sort of CPU hardware platform. Is there anything inherent that makes it difficult for Chrome OS to run on, say, an ARM chip, or is this just a matter of timing that this is basically, we should expect it at some undescript point down the road?
I think that, we can't talk about any future products, obviously, but there's nothing about Chrome OS that limits it to a particular processor architecture. It's completely open source. In fact, many of the ARM vendors have brought Chrome OS up on different ARM SoCs, and it's really a matter of, timing and price point and, a variety of other things. With respect to packaging a product and bringing it to commercial release. So I don't, basically there's nothing holding anybody back other than commitment to ship the product.
There is one thing I'll toss out, which is it's not a limitation of Chrome OS, and it's more of just sort of what ARM chipsets have been built, what the ARM chipset manufacturers have been building. So their main focus has been on phones and now tablets, and what's interesting is that phones and tablets have smaller screens, and it turns out that the thing that you need that's one of the biggest performance bottlenecks on computers in general is memory bandwidth between the CPU and the display architecture. And the bigger the screen, the more memory bandwidth you need. Turns out the smaller the screen, the less you need, right? Conversely. So it's an optimization you can do to make it use less power, to be cheaper and that sort of thing. So many of the ARM chipsets were designed to really be only efficient up to a certain screen size. And so it turns out this is one of the things that's held ARM back getting to the desktop, bigger monitors, and higher res. But now, as tablets have gotten increased density, increased size, increased number of pixels, they've had to solve those same memory bandwidth problems. And so I think we're right on the cusp of being able to see really awesome desktop and laptop ARM form factors coming. And you'll see it for probably a variety of systems.
All right, thank you. Next question from the moderator page is, speaking of sync, any plan for app syncing as well, with an API that would allow apps to sync their data as well? That would obviously mean that apps can run on more platforms.
So yes, and it already exists. There's an extension API that people can start playing with today. We call it's the storage API, chrome.storage .sync. Basically, it's a simple key value store, so you can sort of maintain your state and your preferences and that sort of thing. It's an easy way to sort of move app and extension settings from machine to machine. And we have much more planned for doing more cloud-based storage and making APIs available to apps.
And obviously there's a quick plug for our colleagues on Drive that for applications to be able to store their the user data, that's obviously one of the goals for Drive and getting Drive onto lots of devices. So you get sort of both parts of the equation, your settings and your data that can travel with you. So sync is a huge part of the overall strategy about what we think is really interesting about having lots of devices, but a Chrome experience on all of them. So I think that's pretty key.
Okay, so regarding Chrome OS and the enterprise, what plans do you have for enhancing the management and performance of Cloud Print, particularly around the management of over 1,000 printers at a given company? You know, I know that in Chrome, we don't usually talk about version numbers, but Chrome 20 stable just went to the stable channel this past week. Actually, I take that back. I'm mixing up my version. We're always managing multiple releases at the same time, because we have 4 different channels. So I'm actually thinking about 21. 21 I know has Cloud Print more directly integrated into Chrome's print dialog itself, so it's easier to find your printers immediately when you're printing. And I know that that dialog has a search box so that you can search across all the printers that are available to you. So I hope that the UI team has considered the issue of when you have lots of printers there, although I think this question might be around more from the enterprise.
Yeah, actually, I wonder if any of them,
admin
any
angle.
from Cloud Print here, they have a talk, they have a session today, so if there's no one from the Cloud Print team right here, definitely go to that session and ask them. They've done a lot of work there, so they can probably answer the question.
Cloud Print's actually the last session in this room today, I think, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll sit here all day.
and actually, just so you know, I mean, one of the big strengths we've seen with Chromebooks and Chrome OS has been enterprise management. This ability to drop in 1,000 new devices and just hand them out, and you not have to image them and configure them on a per user basis and deploy a whole bunch of stuff to them, is one of the key strengths we see of Chrome OS. And so we've been investing pretty heavily in the enterprise management console to really make that better. So if there's any limitations on that, we want to hear about it. File bugs, talk to us, because we think that this is an area that that we can really own.
Okay,
Yeah.
we have an audience question.
So I came in a little bit late. I don't know if you addressed this yet, but I was curious about what's the state of eating your own dog food within Google, and if you could talk about the transition of getting people to be full-time Chromebook users instead of regular desktop users, and are people doing that? How successful is it? What kind of experience have you had?
Sure, yeah. So the question is asking, about the phrase "eating our own dog food," which means using our own products as they're being developed at Google and how that's going. I can say for sure for Chrome browser, I definitely eat my own dog food. I run Canary, which is the nightly auto-updated build, side by side with a beta installation on my machine, and so I actually use Canary every day. So I can stay with the latest engineering developments, although I don't recommend that to normal folks. It's painful at times. And in terms of Chromebooks, I certainly carry around my Chromebook with me. I have it right over there, and I use it. And it's really convenient when I'm going to meetings and stuff, especially when I want to get out an email in like 60 seconds or something, right? To open up my lid and press the button and be able to fire off that email and close my lid within 30 seconds while my other one's laptop might be turning away on the antivirus thing for like a minute, because Google Corporate makes us run antivirus on them. But so yeah, we definitely see them a lot around the office, but I do use multiple devices and multiple operating systems. And for Canary on Windows, I run that because I want to get the latest code from our engineers as soon as possible.
But do you have anyone going cold turkey and just Chrome OS exclusively?
I can tell you that the dog fooders at Google who are using Chrome OS have skyrocketed since we released the latest Chromebooks running on Intel Core. The great thing about Google is that, two things, right? We have access to whatever computer we want.
Yeah.
If you want a MacBook Air or MacBook Pro or whatever high-end system you want, you can have it. If you want a Chromebook, you can have it. We don't force anybody to dog food Chrome OS. So everybody who's using Chrome OS uses it by choice. And when you think about it, the fact that you see people, more and more Googlers, who have their pick of any hardware that they want, walking around with Chromebooks, typically which cost often a fraction of what they could be spending, it's pretty remarkable. I can tell you that with the latest Chrome boxes and latest Chromebooks, These devices are just completely hassle-free. You open them up, they work instantly. Battery life, power management, superb. Even the first generation Chromebook, just because of the fact that we have so many existing customers on older hardware and the fact that we're constantly updating even older hardware with newer releases of Chrome OS, I switch devices continuously. And so yesterday during the keynote, when you saw Brian talk about the fact that he's got 7 or 8 different machines, and he just walks from one machine to the next. He doesn't carry a single machine that he has to worry about. That's all possible because of Chrome and Chrome OS. Right. When you're using a machine which is a year old, and you pick it up one day, and it's running 30% faster than the day before because you got the auto update pushed to you, it's really noticeable, and users really love it. And so even today, even though I've got the latest Samsung Chromebook, when I switch to the device that I've been using for over a year, I really don't notice much of a performance difference for most of the things I do. I mean, I'll notice some things for high-end video and things like that, but the device is completely usable. It's just great.
So let me give you another perspective. So I do use my Chromebook exclusively as my laptop. I have to use a different desktop because in engineering we need to test on a bunch of different platforms. Yeah. But I do live on my Chromebook, and it's pretty common now within Google, especially with the new hardware. I'll say that the IT staff within Google, loves it, and they want more people to switch over as soon as they can. And Googlers are a really demanding audience. It turns out that, as Felix said, they can use whatever hardware they want, and a lot of them are doing heavy-duty development tasks and that sort of thing. And so, making hardware that's going to be good enough for the majority of Googlers to actually get their job done is a tall task. And the biggest bit of feedback that we heard early on was that for Googlers, that the previous generation of hardware just wasn't quite powerful enough. And now the feedback that we've gotten from people is, it's like, wow, this is crossed the line, and it's great, it's easy, and totally what they want. Now they want more, of course, and so we're working to build even more powerful machines and a wider variety of form factors. And trust us when we say that Googlers are some of the most demanding audience out there, but the rate that they're growing and they're selecting in and using it themselves is going through the roof.
Yeah, I mean, it is a great idea to have kind of your computer is like an appliance or a kiosk, and I feel very nervous if I have anything on a single machine that is my only copy, and so like moving everything to the cloud, just being able to, but I know that there's lots of little dusty corners of our lives where they're not all able to be pushed to the cloud on Chrome OS yet. So it's nice that you guys are kind of filling in those holes.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I'm the same way. It's like that since I don't do development, 99.9% of my time is spent on a Chromebook, and mostly that's. Honestly, it's about I'm old and I need a keyboard. I'd love tablets, but I spend all my time in email, and I just need to be able to type on a real keyboard. But I love the kind of battery life that that sort of 8-9 hours I can get through a day, and I don't have to carry the little power brick around. So the battery life thing is huge for me when I'm running around campus. Another thing that's really nice about Google, and I bounce between different offices. Like I'll often just not carry a machine with me, and I'll go to the other office. We have these little tech stop places, and I can grab a Chromebook from Tech Stop and just log in, carry on from where I left off, and then I just hand it back at the end of the day, awesome. And I just don't have to travel with anything. So when I'm going through security, and everything gets so much easier when I can just pick up that machine, log in, carry on, and then hand it back, and not worry like, what did I leave on that machine? Like, what was I doing? Did I do anything weird that day?
That's cool.
So that for me, that's a hugely important use case, and I think we'll see more of that as time goes on.
Great. Thanks.
All right, let's take a question from this side.
My question is on moderator, but it seems to have dropped off. I just want to know about international availability of Chrome OS devices, particularly the new Samsung Chromebook, because I'm from New Zealand, and we just don't have access to them there.
What's the international access for Chromebooks? Particularly the new one?
So
particularly New Zealand.
So the new Chromebooks are currently available in US and UK. We're looking at getting them certified in more countries as quickly as possible. But as with all things, it's a matter of just figuring out where the demand is and how to roll out in more countries and get the certifications. The demand for the new Chromebooks, I think, have greatly exceeded the expectations. And so, again, it's just a matter of time. But we're working on getting it out there.
Okay, thanks.
All right, back to this. Actually, I'll go ahead and let's do a couple of these, at least one of these. How far is WebGL support for mobile versions of Chrome? I think Grace already answered that earlier over the microphone. Next question here is about Chrome on iOS. So if you guys didn't hear, we launched Chrome on iOS yesterday.
Really?
And I actually read that it's like the #1 ranked in the App Store now, right?
Yeah, Chrome on iOS was #1, and Drive on iOS was #2.
Drive on iOS is #2.
That's
Great.
pretty wild.
So,
We'll see how long that lasts. But
so we're happy that we were. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're definitely very happy that we were able to get that out to you guys, especially with the sync story we've been telling. It's very important that we have Chrome available on as many platforms as possible. In terms of how Chrome runs on iOS, we obviously have to follow Apple's technical specifications there. So in terms of the actual web content, it does use the UI web view. I don't know if anyone else has any comments there.
So there's two things. You have to think about performance on a number of different axes, right? So one is how long does it take, how fast is it to just get around and get your work done and do stuff like that? And then the second thing is there's sort of raw compute performance or rendering performance within the page. I guess you could count those as 3 areas. So on the pure compute side of things, like if you were to download just a JavaScript benchmark, we're limited by what Apple provides us in that they don't allow you to run your own, JITted, JavaScript engine. They don't allow you to, provide your own rendering, web rendering engine. It's just not allowed by the terms of service. So we have to use the UI web view, and the UI web view is actually more restrictive than what's in Safari. Even though it's some of the same code, they actually turn off some features. And one of the things they turn off is the use of the JIT in their JavaScript engine, so that slows down heavy-duty JavaScript things. And the second thing it does is affects some of the GPU acceleration, how that interoperates. So we have some limitations there. So if you wanted to do just sort of the raw, how fast is this particular page spinning in a loop doing stuff, we aren't going to be as fast as we are on other platforms just due to the limitations. However, the good news is that that's not the entire story. The usability, in terms of how long does it take you to get from point A to point B, is a lot to do with how much we predict what you're going to type. That helps with sync, your usage patterns, the Omnibox, how we're able to prefetch and guess what you're able to do using our pre-rendering and some of our DNS prefetching stuff. We have a lot of little tricks within Chrome beyond just the JavaScript engine and what we're doing inside the web rendering engine. So actually, if you read some of the reviews that are floating around out there, if you see the ones that load up a benchmark and perform and compare them A/B, you'll see that we're slower. If you see the ones that try to use it and say, I navigated to the following 3 sites and time that, you'll see that we're actually way faster, that some people are getting things done twice as fast, getting to their web pages. So if what you're doing is surfing and navigating around, I think you'll find Chrome on iOS is really fast.
Yeah, for me, just the fact that all my favorite websites already autocomplete as soon as I type the first letter because I'm signed into Chrome, it just helps a ton. And for me, I use a lot of tabs. I tend to open a lot of tabs in the background when I'm reading stuff on like Reddit or something. And being able to flip through them and like really easily switch between them is a huge usability improvement for me. All right, go ahead.
On a similar note, one of the things that makes Chrome so much more fast than anything else is the extensions, and in particular for me, the Omnibox extension capability of make completion work. When are you considering bringing this to mobile?
So I think we talked a little bit about this before, but basically, Chrome is a pretty big set of features, and the web has a very broad set of features. And so we only just got Android to Chrome to Android a few months ago, and we only just got Chrome to iOS today or yesterday. We've got a little ways to go to get to feature parity, and extensions is one of those parts that we actually like to take our time with because it has deep integration into all the various hooks in the browser. We also think that in mobile, it's quite likely that how you want to extend the browser is going to be different. Also, the performance needs of mobile are different. So some of the changes we've been making in the desktop have been actually anticipating our needs in mobile. If you look at the new stuff we've done with event pages and extensions, where basically there's no longer going to be an always running persistent background page for every single extension, that we can be a little more on demand. This is partly to reduce the resource consumption of extensions, and we think will make it more adaptable to mobile down the road. Unfortunately, I don't have a good timetable to tell you, but it is something we're interested in.
All right, switch over to this side again.
So I'm curious if there's going to be any advancements in printer support without Google Cloud Print. Right now, it seems like you need a separate machine in order to be able to print. Is there any way that it's going to be possible with the Chromebook alone?
So it sounds like you're asking about printing outside of Google Cloud Print, but specifically for Chrome OS?
Yes.
I see.
Yeah, today people can use any of their legacy printers by using Cloud Print through an existing machine on the network. So, for example, on my home machine, I've got Windows XP set up, I've got Cloud Print installed, and I can get to any of my legacy printers on the network through that. With pretty much every printer I'm aware of on the market today, they're already Cloud Print enabled. So by simply going, any new printer that you get today pretty much can just be on the network and accessible to any Chrome OS or any other device that uses Cloud Print.
Oh, okay.
Cool. All right, back to this side.
I found out, I think next year, that Google is giving my daughter's school a bunch of Chrome OS netbooks, and we live right next to Mountain View. So I was just curious, what's the thinking behind that, and is it more than just a local thing? Is it going to be in other places around the country?
So I know for sure that we've had a lot of schools around the country starting to adopt Chromebooks. Felix can probably tell you the exact numbers, but I know that the feedback's been very positive.
Yeah, education is one of the most aggressively verticals adopting Chromebooks. And the beauty of the web and education is that the web is really a great equalizer, right? All the best content, apps, information accessible to students, very, very low cost, always up to date. Chromebooks are a phenomenal platform for schools because schools have shrinking budgets, no IT staff, and being able to take a device that has zero maintenance, zero management, it's always up to date, doesn't require a ton of care and feeding, and gives people access to all the tools that they use, is really just a great formula for education. We're, in addition to the hundreds and hundreds of schools, I think in 48 states, there are schools that are deploying Chromebooks. We're seeing huge initiatives at national levels where in many emerging markets, countries are looking to Chromebooks as a way to transform education and really create economic transformation across the country. And it's really all about the rich content that's available, all the educational material that's available, and just the ability to get a situation where instead of a 20 students to one computer type ratio in a school, giving students a one-to-one opportunity where every student has a computer that they're using to enhance their learning is truly transformational. And so, from our standpoint, and this is the great thing about working with many of our hardware partners, in education, we're finding a great willingness on the part of companies to be able to foster education. People don't seem to have as large a profit motive in education as they do in other verticals where they need to be making an enterprise profit. But this is just a huge opportunity for us and for future students.
All right, back to this side.
Okay, congratulations, by the way, on shipping Chrome for iOS. That's a big thing. I was in a session yesterday afternoon optimizing your HTML for a mobile device, and the presenter invited us to follow along, give a URL for his slides, and said, we're going to work on this interactively. So I pulled out my iPad and downloaded Chrome for the iPad and was following right along, and then he said, okay, now we're going to install the page speed extension so we can watch and see what happens. And I said, great. Search for page speed right here, Chrome Web Store, and it said, the Chrome Web Store is not supported on your OS.
Yep. So I tried to touch on this earlier, but extensions are something we definitely want to support down the road on mobile and other platforms. It's just very early days, and getting into mobile is going to take us a fair amount of work.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So another Chrome on iOS question. I'm just wondering if it does or is going to support URL schemes so that iOS app developers can launch Chrome if they choose to.
Do we have anybody from the iOS team around here can answer that? Tell you what, once you, if you want, just if you want, we can look that up for you and just leave your email with us. And
Yeah,
we can
come to
turn
us
it back
afterward. We can put you in touch with the right people.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question about my Chromebook. I would like to use it as a web development platform with my HTML and JavaScript files stored on Google Drive. And I tried that yesterday, but then I ran into two problems. One is that I don't have a text editor for my HTML files, and I saw one of the presentations they were using an app, so I want to know which app that is. And the second problem was how to run my HTML files from Google Drive. I only get a preview of the source code. I don't get a run.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I can talk to that. So that you were probably talking about our presentation where we had some text editors running on Chrome OS, and this is using some of the new apps features that we've been working on. They're pretty early on, so they're right now only available to people developing in Canary, but we hope to have them more broadly available later this year. If you're a developer or want to ride the ragged edge, you can come check out. We've got some sample code. I think that particular little micro editor is checked into GitHub in our Google Chrome repo. But a warning is that it's early and it's very simple. It actually isn't as cool as it looked. We actually hit over all the rough spots. So, but there are. I'll tell you that just one of the cool, fun things about the new apps stuff we've been doing is just once you add these new capabilities, seeing what people want to build with them. And within the Chrome team, one of the first things people wanted to build actually was code editors. And in fact, we have like 3 of them already that people are just doing different things with. And so, so we actually expect there to be a plethora of code editors.
I missed if you mentioned it already or not, but there's definitely IDEs available in the Chrome Web Store. I was searching the other day, I saw a bunch, and a bunch of them are pretty highly ranked, I think, yeah.
Right,
Great.
so there is a number of cloud IDEs emerging, like Cloud9, Orion, CodeMirror, and you can use those. And as the Chrome, we are providing them with the extensions APIs so that they could plug into the instrumentation and get the DevTools-like capabilities, right, integrated into the Cloud9, or Orion or whatever. So you have both complete IDE with the remote persistence and the debugging capabilities on the Chrome OS. But it's all coming. We are working on that. We're working with these teams on these capabilities.
And then how do I run my HTML file? When I clicked on the file from Google Drive in my Chromebook, I just got a preview.
So you'd have to ask the Drive team. So unfortunately, none of us are from there. So I don't know if they have any plans to allow direct hosting of HTML straight from Drive. I assume that's what you mean for public consumption. But if you just want to do local development, it should be possible to do to read the files locally and render them, in Chrome. Yeah, We can check with the direct team.
Yeah, we can check with the direct team. Okay, looks like we pretty much just ran out of time. So thank you everybody for
Oh,
coming.
hang on. Just I forgot one other Easter egg. You
yeah.
probably already know. There's another Easter egg in the video, the history of Chrome. So you might want to study that video, and there's something pretty cool in there.
Yeah.
So that was the other one. Sorry.
All right, perfect timing. Yeah, so thank you for coming. We enjoy doing this every year as long as you guys come, and so hopefully see you next year. Otherwise, if you just stay in this room, there's a bunch of Chrome sessions after us. Looks like high performance HTML5, history and future of Google Web Toolkit, writing secure web apps and Chrome extensions, and the Google Cloud Print session. So please enjoy the rest of the conference, and thank you.